Hey, Adam Schitt. Oh, what a nice tweet you stuck up there last night. Yeah, you got to wonder about stuff like this. You got to wonder about people like you. I'll tell you what I think is interesting about it. That is that Real Clear Investigation seems to have outed your so-called whistleblower. Now, we'll see whether or not that's real. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. We're gonna find out. But there's all kinds of links here, and Schiff thinks he's going to get his little impeachment vote, and he probably will because that's one of the things that's kind of interesting is that he can do pretty much whatever he wants behind closed doors until it goes into judiciary, and then there's some due process protections. Then it gets out on the floor and it gets voted on, and it'll be a party line vote. And by the way, folks, anyone that thinks that the House does not have the votes, well, listen, I fully do expect that if Nancy Pelosi is crazy enough to bring that thing to the floor, and she'd be nuts to do it, it's absolutely going to happen. Okay, but then it goes to the Senate. And if the Senate doesn't kill it on a summary basis, which that possibility still exists because any kind of reasonable due process protections equal subpoena calling power equals power to ask questions, all of that stuff that should have been in that resolution is, of course, missing. The chairs of the Democrat chairs of the committees can kill subpoenas from the Republicans, but the Republican ranking member cannot kill subpoenas from the other side. So, this is still not a fair process. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. But let the House have their fun because Adam has this little issue with all the links that are starting to show up about this supposed whistleblower who now all of a sudden he doesn't want to hear from them anymore. Gee, I wonder why. It wouldn't be because some of the people who he worked with, he's hired on his committee, right, as staff to maybe prosecute this thing. Maybe this guy's not a whistleblower. Maybe this guy's actually a fact witness. Maybe Adam is a fact witness. Maybe he should be called. I don't know if you could actually do that. I don't know if you could do that in the Senate. You probably can't. Although maybe you can because he's not a senator. You probably could call him as a fact witness. But I'll tell you who'd be really interesting to call as a fact witness, given the pattern of information that Real Clear Investigations has put out. We could start with Brennan. And then, since apparently this supposed whistleblower and the fix being in with this person, I think we could probably call a few other people who are directly related to the question of the Ukraine, because that's what we're really talking about here with these supposed articles of impeachment that are going to come out, right? Is supposed foreign influence and interference in elections. So let's talk about foreign influence and interference in elections. Was President Trump trying to run down foreign influence and interference in the last election? In which case, by the way, there ain't nothing wrong with it. Oh, you don't get to get out of jail free just because you declared yourself a candidate for president. That's not how it works. So what was President Trump trying to do? Well, that kind of goes to the question of whether or not he ought to be impeached and removed, right? I would think so. So when this goes to trial, what I would expect is, let's subpoena Mr. Whistleblower. And then let's subpoena this wonderful individual that's connected to him that he invited into the White House and was involved in putting together all of this dirt that was dug up in Ukraine and by Ukrainians on President Trump when he was running for office. And all the connections there. And this particular person was invited in October of 2016. That was just a month before the election, wasn't it? The vice president hosted for an Italian prime minister. And Brennan was there, and Comey was there, and Clapper was there. And, I don't know. This is kind of interesting. These people, they worked on Ukrainian policy issues for Biden in 2015, 2016. So you got to wonder. You just got to wonder because it would seem to me that all the people that were part of that, why, they should be subpoenaed. And they should have to testify in open in the Senate as to exactly what were they doing in the Obama White House. And by the way, what else was going on here? And you got to wonder, what was Trump's real purpose? Because that really goes to the question, wasn't it? I mean, was he trying to interfere in the 2020 elections? Or was he trying to go after corruption in the Ukraine from the previous cycle and that may have continued? By the way, remember, there is a treaty, a formal treaty between the United States and the Ukraine regarding investigation of criminal matters. And incidentally, it appears to be established at this point, although we'll have to see all the evidence, that at the time that Trump made that call, there couldn't have been a quid pro quo because there was no quo. The Ukrainians did not know that the aid had been held up. They didn't know that for another month. So how can you possibly bribe somebody, or blackmail them for that matter, if they don't know what it is that you might want to bribe or blackmail them with? That'd be kind of hard to do, right? And asking somebody for something, head of state to head of state, when you're both heads of the executive and the executive enforces laws, and there's a treaty that says you're supposed to cooperate in enforcing laws, that's not an offense. So, if in fact it is established that there was corruption during the 2016 campaign, and these people were involved in it, and it goes all the way up into the Obama White House, gee, Adam, why wouldn't you want that to come out in the open? Your ability to prevent that ends as soon as you send your articles into judiciary, and then they get voted upon in the House. You ought to think about that long and hard, buddy, because once that gets out of the House, if you're stupid enough to put that on the floor and you get a vote out of the House of Representatives and it goes to the Senate, you lose all control over the process at that point. And frankly, I don't have nearly enough popcorn or scotch for the fireworks that I think are going to ensue when that happens. I'm your ticker guy. Have a good day.